Today, what I'm gonna do is read a couple of the bold captions from this book that I've read before. I'm reading it again right now, but I'm just gonna read some of the highlighted stuff, and I think you guys might find it quite interesting. It says, "True wisdom comes by learning from life and not repeating mistakes." To me, a lot of us seem to be repeating mistakes over and over and over and over again, still never learn the lesson. That's why I keep asking you a question. You said you studied Rosewood and you studied Tulsa and many other towns, but did you learn the lessons? The plantation mentality has only one purpose: to create more anger and resentment among black Americans and more guilt among white Americans. Think about that for a second. Wisdom comes not from the journey, but from the experience along the way. Only a fool starves in the land of plenty. Now I'm going to read this little section here in the book. I'm not going to read the whole book, of course not. It says, "I am not a victim, I am victorious. There have not been people of any nation during any time who have suffered as much as did black Americans under slavery, as well as afterwards. However, despite laws that made it illegal to read and write, despite laws forbidding ownership of property, despite families separated by selling and buying, black people not only survived slavery in America, but we have thrived." So under those type of conditions, we still managed to not only survive, as the author correctly stated, we managed to thrive. But in this current day, 2017, we are not really thriving. We are in survival mode. Why is it? Could it be that we failed to learn the lessons of the past? Could it be that we followed wrong leadership? Could it be that's our inability to act, and we're still waiting for someone to do what we need to do? You see, back in the time of slavery, they actually act on what they know they had to do. They didn't wait around. The stakes were a lot higher, way higher. If you got caught reading, some of us saw the movie's Roots. We saw what happened. But yet, some people still learn how to read and write. Think about that. Now, what I'm going to read now is going to be very, very powerful. And if you're honest, you'll see what I'm talking about. But if you still want to play games with yourself and don't want to be honest with yourself, then you will not understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to change one word, though, from what the author wrote. They wrote slaves. I'm going to say enslaved, because no one is actually born a slave. You're actually enslaved. Okay. Since 1444, when the first Portuguese sailors took enslaved people out of Africa, black people have been hampered with a huge inferiority complex. That's a fact. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's why a lot of times a lot of you guys keep comparing yourself to European people. And that's why I also noticed that despite when some of us go outside of our race, what you guys say, you don't mind so much when it's an Asian woman or Indian woman or any other woman. But when it comes to that European woman or European man, my God, that cuts through you like a knife. Oh, hell no. Because you still got that huge inferiority complex. You might not admit it, but your actions prove it to me and many other people. It's really, it's funny though. It's like the follower following the follower. It makes no sense. But nevertheless, just think about that for a second. From 1444, we're now in 2017. You do the math and see how many years that is. And we're still suffering from a huge inferiority complex. The plantation mentality, our journey from victim to victorious. Not only do I pray for it on the score of human dignity, but I can clearly foresee that nothing but the rooting out of slavery can perpetuate the existence of our union by consolidating in a common bond of principles. Do you know who wrote that? That was George Washington. One thing I've learned about history is that no one will ever give up power without encouragement from the powerless. That's very, very important. Talking truth to power is not going to do it. You could tell them all the facts you want, it won't change anything. You can show how different their blood is from our blood, it still wouldn't change anything. Who is going to give up their power? Who's going to give up the certain gifts they get, their privilege? Who's going to willingly give that up to become unprivileged? Think about it, man. Be honest with yourself. You got to be real, man. Who's going to do that without some type of encouragement? Let's face it, the plantation was a business. Its purpose was to provide profit and prosperity for the owner and his family. It was not for the purpose of helping poor whites, slaves, or the nation. It was for profit, power, and culture. Suddenly, the black Americans lost control of their schools, businesses, and families. The slave master had to change his image in order to control his slaves. Listen carefully now. He had to declare compassion as he encouraged dependency by the welfare system. Welfare did not just mean payments to the family for basic substance. It also included a system to discourage marriage and the participation of the male in raising of his family. Just like the plantation, the slave male was reduced to a breeder with his female. He had no responsibility for caring or raising of his kids. Master did that for him. So do you understand? Do you see the correlations? So you have to dig back in history, but you got to learn the lessons from it. Don't just sit there and don't learn anything. That's why you see the condition we're in today. From a lot of the laws and programs that were enacted in the past. But we still are not learning the lessons. Whether or not you believe the Willie Lynch letter was real or not, it's irrelevant. The effects are still felt to this day. So I believe I'm going to read this last part, and I think I'm going to end the video on this. The Slave Consultant's Narrative. This speech was delivered by a white slave owner, William Lynch, on the bank of the James River in 1712. Gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with your slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods of control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented, as our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish. Yes, they're talking about the same King James. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to skip to some of the other parts real quick. It says, I caught a whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple of miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hanging, you are having uprising. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the field too long for maximum profit. Remember, I said earlier that slavery was a business. He goes on to say, you suffer occasional fires and your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. You do not need to elaborate. I am not here to ameliorate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slave. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves. and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. Now, wait a minute. Isn't that still being used today amongst us right now? So whether or not you believe in the Willie Lynch letter or not, that what he just listed out here is still being used to this day to control us. We fear one another. We severely distrust one another, and we're envious of one another. When we see one of us getting ahead, oh hell no, I got to bring that person down. And you can clearly see right here on YouTube how y'all spend so much time and videos after video after video trying to tear down one of your own. I can understand you not agreeing with someone making 1 or 2 videos, 3, maybe 5 the most, but some of you guys go way overboard, man. You make 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, like I said, some people up to like 200 videos. Okay, we get your message. We get it. Can you move on? So we still have that envy, that distrust amongst us to this day. That was written back in supposedly 1712. Here we are in 2017. Think about that. Now I skipped ahead a little bit here. It says on the top of my list is age. The second is color or shade. Then there is intelligence, size, sex, and size of the plantations. Now I'm gonna just start with age for a second. Now we already see there's a huge rift going on between the young and the old. The young don't want to take any advice at all from the old people. You see it here with some of these young guys. The young guy in particular, y'all seem to gravitate towards. I'm not going to call his name, but anytime anybody who's older than him trying to, hey, just give him a little critique, a little good critique, honest critique, he doesn't want to hear it. He lashes out angrily, violently, wants to stab people and punch people and so forth. Can't you see the effects of that letter still in place right now? Then he says he uses sex. Well, we are anybody who's been watching anything or listening to any type of videos or reading any type of articles or been around from since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. You could talk to them. And even right now in this current day where we have especially the black male, I'm using words you all know, the black male versus the black female. Y'all see it. We all see it. We saw the episode a couple months ago, I think it's a month or so now, where some black females want to shut down some black males channel and some black males want to do the same to the black females. This letter is still in effect today. Even in some people say they don't want to believe in it, it's still in effect today. The young versus the old, light skin versus dark skin, the female versus the male, it's still here to this day. To this day. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and read it right here now. It says, don't forget, you must always pitch the old black versus the young black male. The young black male against the old black male. You must also use dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves. And then the light-skinned slave versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must also use the female versus the male. And the male versus the female. Don't you see it? That was supposedly written back in 1712. And still to this day, I gotta keep saying it. In 2017, you do the math and see how much time has gone by. 2017, we still have the males versus the females, light skin versus dark skin, the young versus the old. How are you going to build anything with that type of division? They say a house divided cannot stand. Our house is severely divided. And we have a very, very bad, big problem going on, because when you have the fact that the young don't want to take any advice from the old, so who's going to do the leading? You see, the old folks, when I was growing up, used to always tell me, I have been your age once before, but you have never been my age, which is true. So they have life experience. You might not agree with everything they might have to tell you, but you might be able to extrapolate a little bit of information from what they're telling you. And if you got the male versus the female going on, you got a severe problem, because that's your reproductive unit right there. So if they're on the warpath, you got a severe problem. Then you got the other problem with coloration. Light skin versus dark skin. As if somebody ever made an exception when it comes to putting you in a noose. You know what? You light skin. We're not gonna put you on the news. Can you point us in the direction of some dark skinned black folks? Or you think when they come to shoot you down on the street or in Walmart because you're carrying a BB gun that they think is a gun? That fellow was light skinned last I checked. He wasn't dark skinned, what you might call, some of you might call, because y'all use that phrase nowadays, crispy, which I think is real stupid. He wasn't crispy. It didn't stop him from being shot down in Walmart. You know the fellow name I'm talking about. So what are you talking about? You keep putting these dividers in you, not realizing that what you have in common. You have the same common oppressor, but you keep putting these divisions. And you wonder why we are still in the condition we're in here in 2017. I can guarantee it. I can set my watch. We will be in the same condition in 2020. You don't have to take my word for it. When 2020 comes around, you'll see it for yourself. The name of the book that I've been reading from is titled "It's Okay to Leave the Plantation" by C. Mason Weaver. Look it up. It's Okay to Leave the Plantation, the New Underground Railroad. It's a very good book. But if you don't like truth and you don't like being honest with yourself, you're going to hate the book. I'm just being honest, you're not going to like it at all. Because a lot of us live in a fantasy type of reality where we make all the rules which no one follows, but we think that's progress. C'est la vie.